Alright, so today we are talking about Samuel again, but we're also introducing a new character. Okay? His name is Saul, and he becomes a king. Okay? So we're going to find out how Saul becomes a king, why he becomes a king, and we're going to read about it in the book of 1 Samuel. It says, "When Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons as Israel's leaders. The name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second was Abijah. But his sons did not follow his ways. They turned aside after dishonest gain and accepted bribes, and they perverted justice. So all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. They said to him, 'You are old, and your sons do not follow in your ways.'" Now, who thinks that it's kind of rude to tell a person you're old?
Me.
Yeah, especially if you don't know the person. I think it's kind of rude, but I don't think he took offense to this when everybody came and said, "You are getting old, and your sons, they don't follow your ways. Now, appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have." So Israel wanted to be just like all the other nations. Now, we've learned about this before, when Israel would chase after the other nations' gods to worship them. Well, in this case, they're not saying that. What they're saying is, we want a king over us and to rule over us just like all the other nations. And when he said, "Give us a king to lead us," this displeased Samuel. So he prayed to the Lord. And the Lord told him, "Listen to all that the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king." Okay, so what is God saying, and who should be Israel's king?
God.
Yeah, that's right.
God.
God's like, I'm supposed to be your king. Okay? Yes?
Someone was calling you.
Oh, did it stop the video?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that, just in case it was someone important.
Okay, thank you. No, don't throw it.
That's the saddest thing I've ever seen.
Alright. So, God's like, "Hey, I'm supposed to be your king, but you're asking for a human king. Well, since you want this, I'll give it to you. But let me just warn you about what a human king will actually do." Okay? He said, a human king, he's going to take your sons and daughters away from you, and he's going to make them his slaves. And he's going to say, "I have a job for you, and this is what you're going to do, whether you like it or not." Okay? God said also a human king will take some of your animals that you raise and say, "I'm going to take it for myself," maybe a tenth of everything that you have and that you raise. And all the people, when they heard this, they're like, "We don't care. We actually don't. I don't think that's going to happen. The king's going to be good, and we want a king anyways." Okay? So God, he had a plan then of who should be the king. So Samuel summoned the people of Israel to the Lord and said to them, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I brought Israel up out of Egypt, and I delivered you from the power of Egypt and all the kingdoms that oppressed you. But now you have rejected your God, who saves you out of all your disasters and all of your calamities, and you have said, 'No, appoint a king over us.' So now present yourselves before the Lord by your tribes and clans." When Samuel had all Israel come forward by tribes, the tribe of Benjamin was taken by lot. Okay. So, he was setting for all the people, and he said, "Okay, all the men of Israel come forward. Now I want the tribe of Benjamin, all the men to come forward." And then he said, okay, after the tribe of Benjamin, there is a sub-tribe, or called a clan, from Benjamin, and they're called the Matrites. Forgot that name. So there was fewer people to choose from. And then God said, okay, from this clan, I'm raising up a guy from there, and his name is Saul. So now, Saul was chosen from the clan. Okay? Finally, Saul, son of Kish, was taken. But when they looked for him, he was not to be found. So they inquired further of the Lord, has the man come here yet? And the Lord said, yes, he's hiding himself among the supplies. See? So he was actually hiding. He didn't want to be seen. He didn't want to be noticed. They ran and brought him, and as he stood among the people, he was a head taller than any of the others. He was a head taller.
What's that mean?
That means he was about a foot taller than everybody else. So his head would have been overlooking everyone else's. Samuel said to all the people, do you see the man the Lord has chosen? There is no one like him among all the people. Then the people shouted, long live the king! People were obviously excited. All right. Now, after he became king, there was a war that broke out. More like a battle, because it was a smaller scale. Okay? Now, the Ammonites, they besieged, which means they took captive, men from Israel, and they were the men of Jabesh. Okay? So Jabesh is like a family that was part of Israel. So the Ammonites took over, and they said, you are now our slaves. And Jabesh said, oh no, well, we should reach out to our king to rescue us, right? Now that we have a king. And so Jabesh said, and the men said, why don't you just give us a little bit of time, let us send messengers out amongst the rest of the Israelites. We'll spread the word that we're in trouble. Now, funny enough, the Ammonites said, okay. I think they were kind of laughing and scoffing at them, saying, go ahead and try to see if they can rescue you from us. Okay? So they send out messengers across all of Israel till it reached the ears of Saul. So King Saul, he heard about this. They told the messengers who had come, say to the men of Jabesh, by the time the sun is hot tomorrow, you will be rescued. When the messengers went and reported this to the men of Jabesh, they were so excited. They said to the Ammonites, tomorrow we will surrender to you and you can do to us whatever you like. Now why did they say that? Because they knew they were going to be rescued. So again, they were saying it mockingly. Okay? So when King Saul heard that some of his men were in trouble, he sent the messengers back to them and said, don't worry, by tomorrow, before the sun gets hot, we're going to rescue you. Okay? The next day, Saul separated his men into 3 divisions during the last watch of the night, and they broke into the camp of the Ammonites, and they killed them until the heat of the day. Those who survived were scattered, so that no 2 of them were left together. So they were rescued. Right. Now, Samuel, do you remember him actually looking younger than this last time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's gotten old by now in our story. Okay? And he actually has a farewell speech that he gave to Israel because he knew that he was getting old and was going to pass soon. Okay? So, first thing. He says, as for me, far be it from me that I should sin against the Lord by failing to pray for you. And I will teach you the way that is good and right. Be sure to fear the Lord and serve him faithfully with all your heart. Consider what great things he has done for you. Yet, if you persist in doing evil, both you and your king will perish. All right, so Samuel, he gave a warning, but he also gave them some hope, and he gave them instruction. Okay? So let's talk about the warning first, because that's not the fun part, right? He says, the warning is, if you persist in doing evil, both you and your king will perish. But he also gives them encouragement. And he says, and I will teach you the way that is good and right. In fact, he had already been teaching them what is good and right. He also encouraged them by saying, I will continue to pray for you. And I want to share with you guys that one good way that we can serve and love one another is by praying for one another. Now, you might not know this, but every week I pray for each one of you guys throughout my week until I see you guys again. And I pray for God's blessing on you, and I pray that God is your help. Pray that you guys learn more about who He is and actually understand and want to follow Him. Okay? And that you guys understand the ways of good and right. All right. And then he also gave instructions. Okay. Bye, Chloe.
Hi, Chloe.
But be sure to fear the Lord and serve Him faithfully with all your heart. Consider what great things He has done for you. You guys have heard a lot of Bible stories so far, and you've heard of what God has done for the Israelites, how He rescued them over and over again. And Samuel is saying, I want you guys to remember and to remind one another what God has done for you. All the good things He's done. And I'm also telling you guys, instructing you to serve the Lord faithfully with all of your heart. Okay? So that doesn't mean you do it just because you have to, or because you feel compelled to, or because you'll get in trouble if you don't. He's saying, I want you to do good because you have your whole heart involved. Because you love God, because you love one another. Okay?
Christy.
Very good. Yeah. Okay, I am almost done with this. Okay. All right, so now I have one more thing to share, and this is about Saul. Now, this is probably the last time you guys are going to hear about King Saul because his reign was not very long. And the reason is because he actually feared man over God. Now you might be thinking, what does that mean? Kinda. But you have to explain better what that means. Okay? So when it came to King Saul, if the people pressured him to do something, and God said, no, I already told you not to do that, he would give in to the people instead. Okay? So he would obey the people's voice rather than God's voice. For example, there was an enemy. The Philistines were coming after the Israelites. And God gave him instruction. He said, this is what you're going to do. You are going to make a sacrifice, a lamb sacrifice. And as the people, the enemy is coming, I'm going to put them in confusion and you are going to be saved from your enemies. Now, make sure, God says, make sure that you obey my voice though, because it's not you making the sacrifice, it's Samuel. Okay? So God was saying if you would trust God and if you would obey exactly what he said. So he had everything for the sacrifice ready, and he sees the enemy approaching and he gets really afraid, and he goes to his servant, give me the sacrifice, I'll just do it myself. And he sacrifices the lamb to the Lord, and then Samuel starts coming up the hill, and he sees that he's already done with the sacrifice, even though it was his job. And he said, what have you done? And Saul said, I did exactly what you said. We performed the sacrifice so the Lord would find favor and rescue us from our enemies. And Samuel said, no, you've disobeyed the Lord. You were supposed to wait till I came to make the sacrifice. So he was fearing his enemies instead of trusting God. Okay? Now, we don't usually have an extreme case like that in our own lives, but sometimes we do relate in the sense that we trust or we fear somebody who's against us and don't trust God to be our help. Okay? So God wants us to trust him to be our help, to be our rescuer, to be the one we can turn to, and he wants us to obey him and what he says, and not fear whatever enemy is against us, or whatever situation is opposing us, okay? Now, another way I can explain that Saul's heart feared man was that he was fearing the people's desires to save the best animals. Let me explain. Another war came along, okay? And Saul was instructed by God, I do not want you to save any of their animals, even if their animals look really good. I don't want you to save any of them. I want them all to be destroyed. Okay?
Why?
The reason is because they were tainted with the sin of those who owned them. Okay? Now let me just give you a taste of what their enemies was like. There was the king of his enemy. He made it so he oppressed his people so much where women could not have children. Now, what does that look like? I wouldn't know for sure because the Bible doesn't give detail. But I know one way it can happen. If you beat a pregnant woman enough, her baby's not going to be able to be born. She's going to have a miscarriage, right? So this king was known for hurting the women, okay? And he was, not this king, the enemy that they were fighting against, okay? So God said, and that, with those people, there's so much evil, do not save any of the animals either that goes along with them, okay? Because they are tainted. Now, he heard the voice King Saul did of his people, and they're like, look at those animals. They look like we should keep them because there's no blemish. They look perfect. And he obeyed the voice of the people instead, and he took the best animals for himself. And when the Lord heard about this, he was not happy with King Saul, and he said, you are fearing man over me. You are obeying man and disobeying me. I know that your heart is very far from me, and you do not take concern of what I have to say. So he said, your reign is going to be short, and I'm going to raise up another king after you, a man who's going to be a man after my own heart. Okay? And this next king, some of you guys might have heard of him before, because he's a pretty popular king in the Bible. Okay? But I'll probably have to share that with you either next week or after break, I'm not sure.
What's the name for it?
You want to know the name?
Yes.
Is it David?
Yep, it was David.